Ladies and gentlemen, we're back now with Paula Flo talking about what's going on in Arizona. Go ahead
Yes,
with what's happening here.
with Governor Jan Brewer. Okay, so what I was explaining is that Governor Jan Brewer is trying to come across to America like, oh my gosh, I can't believe what's going on with CPS. Oh, but it's all under her leadership. It's under her leadership. It's under Bill Montgomery, the attorney, attorney here. Um, Clarence Carter, of course, he's the director, and Tom Horn, the Arizona Attorney General. They are all allowing this. They're all over the news now saying, oh, wow, look, they ignored these 6,000 reported cases of abuse, which is horrific. But what about the more than 35 children who are picked up needlessly, who are being abused once they get picked up and thrown in the system? So those 6,000, who knows, it might have been good they weren't picked up, because if they ended up in the hands of CPS, which is under Clarence Carter's nose, Tom Horn's nose, Bill Montgomery's nose, and especially Jan Brewer's nose, who knows what could have happened. It could have been going from the frying pan to the oven. But the thing is that for Governor Jan Brewer to say, oh, I'm so upset, we got to protect the kids, I want accountability. Well, why hasn't she ended this in her schools? Why is this still going on in Arizona schools if Jan Brewer is so upset about the children? She can set off the much needed domino effect, because if she bans this in Arizona, well, then perhaps the other 18 states where this is going on will stop also.
Yeah, and by the way, Governor Brewer, as the chairman of the Congressional Prayer Conference of Washington, D.C., I want you to know my show is open. If you would like to answer any of these charges,
Yes,
if you would like to come on and give your side of the
that'd
story
be awesome.
and tell us why, hold that paddle up again, tell us why you're saying you protect the children, but you're allowing this kind of thing to go on in your state.
Exactly.
Come on the show, talk with my audience about it. We'll give you all the time you want because we're here to save the children and to save our nation. Go ahead.
Right. Well, I'm going to continue on. That's what I had to say about Arizona, but the constituents in this state, my email address is safechildenvironments, plural environments, at gmail.com. And we really urge residents of this state to not sit back and say, yeah, why isn't Jan doing it? Well, we need your voices too. We the people, please speak out. This needs to stop.
Amen.
And now I'm going to continue on with this particular state, which is, I can't see that. This is Arkansas. Oh, yes, Arkansas is the state where a mother moved from because she couldn't get the Arkansas teachers to stop beating her children. So she moved from Arkansas to Arizona, not knowing she was moving into the capital state for kidnapping. And all three of her sons have been kidnapped. All three have been sexually molested. She's running from this and ends up in our kidnapping system of America. And so one of the boys has herpes all around his mouth from forced oral sex. The other one has tried to commit suicide because he's been beaten so badly under CPS custody. And the third one has had his hands tied over his head as a 6-year-old while his CPS worker sexually molests him. And that's not even the whole picture. That's just one incident that I'm sharing with you.
And
And
ladies and gentlemen, I
mhm,
want to personally say I am personally embarrassed to hear this story because I was born and raised in Arkansas.
mm,
And I am terribly apologetically saying to this family, I'm so sorry for what Arkansas did to you and your family.
yes.
And we will do something about it.
Oh,
We
wonderful.
will do something about it.
Well, the children were taken over a year ago. They're still not with their mom, and they're being tortured and molested under CPS, and we must save them.
We must.
They have written letters that we put on YouTube that say, Mom, I'm being molested.
Mm.
And we took that letter and hand delivered it to Sheriff Joe. We put it in the hands of his office mate, Angelo Calderoni, and we handed it to him, and nothing. So we're not playing. We are tired of our children being pimped by the U.S. government. That's
Yes.
all there is to it.
Yes.
Okay, so that's Arkansas. Now this state here, Florida. How many of you have visited www.thewhitehouseboysonline.com?
Mm.
I don't know if you know my good friend Robert Straley or my good friend Roger Dean Kaiser Sr., but those boys were brutalized, and not only with this, but with the whip. And the governor of Florida has told them that they are giving no apology. These men are in their late 60s, and they were beaten so badly that they said that the mattress would go down a foot. The big guy beating them would take the whip and bring it over from over his head and come down and beat them so hard they'd go down a foot.
Mm.
And the governor says, we owe no apology.
Oh my goodness.
And so it is still allowed in their state. You would think if they had integrity that they would say, you know what, to honor you men, you guys are 60s, you guys are 70s, you're up in age. We're going to honor you and ban school beatings in Florida. But no, they were sent away and said, literally, we are not giving you an apology. And Robert
Unbelievable.
Straley and Roger Dean Kaiser Sr., we will not stop until this is banned. And we promise that.
Amen. Amen.
All right. Okay, Georgia is where the hitting stops here began. In 2006, on September 11th, I walked in and I witnessed corporal punishment in the state of Georgia, and I was appalled. I had been teaching more than 25 years at that point and had no idea this was legal in American schools. And the hitting stops here started after I had gone to the principal, her supervisor, the supervisor of hers, the superintendent of that state. I went to a public school attorney, and finally, then I even flew back to California and flew back to meet with him. And he said, I'm sorry, ma'am, this is what we do here. And
Mm.
upon those words, my head spun, and the hitting stops here started then. This has been a nonstop, more than 7-year campaign to get this out of our schools. And Homeland Security supports it.
And ladies and gentlemen, let me say this. As the chairman of the Congressional Prayer Conference of Washington, D.C., I very seldom endorse or I very seldom ask you to help. But I have investigated this lady thoroughly. I've looked in her background, looked in her family background, and she is a godly woman. She is a faithful woman, and she deserves your investment. Would you like to hold that board up again for us? Would you like to invest in getting rid of that? If you want to invest, help this lady. Help us get the word out. We have dedicated a great deal of the Congressional Prayer Conference of Washington, D.C.'s television and radio network. We don't have a lot of money. Neither do you folks. But a $10 donation, 20, whatever, could be greatly used and a great opportunity for you to invest in getting rid of that board. I want to be able to say in the future, I invested time, talent, and treasure to get rid of this board. Tell them if they'd like to invest, where do they do it and how do they do it?
Well, I would suggest that they contact us on our 800 number, which is a voicemail, and they can leave their email or phone number, and I can call them back. And that number is 800-515-9216. And if they want to send an email, again, it's 3 words: safe, child, environments. And again, environments is plural, at gmail.com.
All right, very good. Now go ahead with your report.
Okay, so, oh, which one is this? Oh, I'm just getting the check. Idaho, yes, Idaho is still going on, especially in Mormon land.
Yep.
Okay, they believe in this, and I have friends who have spoken to me about the humility and how they hated school because they were being beaten. And just to get even with the teacher, they didn't want to learn. And it wasn't until this particular friend of mine, he's in his 40s now, he said, I finally went to school when I was in my 30s. I went back to college. He said, I didn't want them to take the fun of learning away from me. He said, but I was so rebellious. I hated school and I hated learning. And he said, that's what this wooden board did for me.
Yes, amen.
That's Idaho, and it's still alive and living there.
Still going on, folks.
Going on.
Indiana?
Oh, Indiana, so sad. Michael Jackson, 2 weeks before Michael Jackson passed away, there was a bill that said that if a teacher, by accident, kills a child through discipline, okay, because children have ruptured spleens from this. A 12-year-old girl not that far ago was beaten and her spleen ruptured and she died because of this discipline going on in America.
So she was literally killed
She
with
was
this board.
killed by this deadly weapon,
Mm.
okay, because she was probably running when she was supposed to be walking, okay. But in Indiana, Michael Jackson, 2 weeks before he died, the bill to tell, it's called the no intention to cause harm gambit. And so because of that, they had this bill that they were going to say, okay, if a teacher accidentally kills a child, they cannot go to jail. Well, 2 weeks later, Michael Jackson dies, and 2 weeks after that, the bill passed. So instead of Indiana uplifting a superstar who he may have had his problems because he was brutalized as a child and he did have obvious emotional issues. But Michael Jackson was a nonviolent person and he was trying to help the USA. And Indiana could not even have enough respect for his stand that 2 weeks after he died, that they're saying if you abuse a child, kind of like the way Michael Jackson was, oh, don't worry, you don't have to go to jail. We just passed the no intention to cause harm gambit. So even if you kill them in Indiana, you don't have to worry about going to jail.
Oh,
That's Indiana.
what a tragedy.
Yes. Oh, Oklahoma. No, that's not. It has not a check. I'm looking at the check. It's not in Iowa. As a matter of fact, I just want everybody to know Iowa and Minnesota are non-school beating states because the chairman of the U.S. Department of Education on the Senate as well as in the House lead the top U.S. states for education, and they said this is not acceptable, but they're allowing it in 19 other states, including Arizona.
Mm.
Kentucky, yes, Kentucky is alive and living. I've received a story from a school beating state where the one of the principals was actually sleeping around with a teacher in the same school where he beats children. He broke up with the teacher, dated her high school daughter, got her pregnant, and this is all in Kentucky. The girl is pregnant by this principal, and there's allowed to be kids there. That's how chaotic this whole expression is. That all of that sort of stuff is going on under the roof of schools that would use something like this to train its children while it's fooling around doing things that are horrible.
Amen. And ladies and gentlemen, that's what this program is all about tonight. We're going to be using this. It'll be on YouTube. It'll be on Twitter. It'll be on the Wiley Drake Show. We're going to have Paula Flo back on again and again. We're going to stop
Okay.
the abuse of our children, ladies
Yes.
and gentlemen.
Yes.
We're going to stop their beatings, and we're going to do it now.